Part 54. A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 531. Although Kaido thinks that his relationship with Orgrim is very strong, but the number of times they actually met and the time they spent together was really limited. As for Neiman, he was not very familiar with her. In his impression, Neiman was a woman who was as strong as Orgrim. So I didn't recognize Neiman at first. I just think this guy looks familiar, but I can't remember where I've seen him before. But Sphinx and Orgrim are naturally very familiar with Neiman. At this time, the Sphinx was stunned, looking at Neiman with an unbelievable look on her face, her mouth wide open, pointing her finger at Neiman, wanting to say something, but she just couldn't express the feeling. You, Neiman, the Sphinx finally choked out these words. Neiman, Kaido frowned, sounds so familiar. Huh? Isn't this the name of Orgrim's sister? Kuranda Neiman. It doesn't look like this. He should be stronger. Kaido glanced at Neiman strangely, then turned to look at Orgrim. I don't recognize him. As an elder brother, can you not recognize him? As a result, when I turned around, I saw that Orgrim also had a shocked expression. Kaido was very confused. What do you mean? Why don't you just play the family recognition game for me? It's me, the Sphinx. Neiman smiled a little embarrassed. This voice, this head, you are right, what happened to you? Why are you so hungry? Where are your toned muscles? Dover. What the hell did you do to Neiman? Sphinx felt that his thoughts were in chaos for a moment and he couldn't react at all. In anger, he grabbed Doflamingo's collar and wanted to question him. It hurts, I have a broken bone, no matter how you look at it, it's not me who did anything to Neiman, right? It's me who's in a wheelchair, Doflamingo complained with a rare gaffe. Sphinx also calmed down a little at this time, quickly let go of his hand, looked at Doflamingo with some embarrassment and said sorry, but Dover, what happened to Neiman? Before she went to your place, she was very strong and healthy, but now she is as thin as a bean sprout. Not powerful at all. What do girls want to be powerful? Isn't this beautiful? Doflamingo said with a bit of toothache. The Sphinx was stunned again. Huh? What you said seems to make sense. At this moment, Orgrim suddenly took 2 steps forward and grabbed Neiman's shoulder and squeezed it hard. Neiman also reacted instinctively, and the muscles on her shoulders instantly tensed up. When Orgrim squeezed it down, it was as if he was pinching steel, extremely solid. You, Neiman, has your power awakened? Orgrim looked at Neiman with a complicated look on his face and asked. Neiman's expression was a little shy, and she nodded towards Orgrim and said, that's right, brother. Hearing Neiman's admission, the slightly complicated thoughts in Orgrim's heart suddenly dissipated. What replaced it was a deep sense of joy. It's not that he's happy because Neiman is so powerful. He also has that kind of feeling, but he, Orgrim, doesn't care about that. In the final analysis, Neiman's most essential identity is her sister. Although he never said it, Orgrim had felt very guilty about Neiman in the past. So does Beckman. Both of them believed that it was because they failed to be brothers that Neiman was captured by the traffickers. Even if it doesn't lead to any big mistakes or irreversible consequences in the end. But Neiman did suffer a lot and even ate the muscle fruit. Although she has never complained about anything, a girl, at her most beautiful and youngest years, will turn into an extremely strong muscle monster. What a heavy heart and sad fact this is. Therefore, Beckman and Orgrim have always felt guilty about Neiman. They believe that it was because of their mistakes that Neiman became a devil fruit user. It's just that the 3 brothers and sisters have a deep relationship, and no one will mention such a topic. Just keep these thoughts in your heart and make compensation in more places. It's not about redemption and repentance, it's just about making myself feel better. Orgrim has always wanted to find a good partner for Niemann, so why not do it out of this idea? Now, Niemann has awakened her devil fruit ability, and her exploding muscles have finally dissipated. A girl recovered, well, in short, a beautiful young girl should have the face and figure. This is the happiest and most gratifying thing for Orgrim. Orgrim patted Niemann's shoulder with some excitement, and couldn't help but sigh. Okay, that's good. She is indeed my sister of Orgrim. I knew you must be Niemann, you're a first-rate beauty, it's all my fault and Beckman's fault for making you suffer for so many years, I have finally recovered. My sister, Orgrim, is indeed a first-rate woman whose strength and beauty are second to none. Listening to Orgrim's rare true words, Niemann also had tears in her eyes and said, brother, I have never blamed you and my second brother. This is not the fault of any of us. I can only say that this is fate, it is a gift with a price secretly marked on it, and I finally paid back the price. Orgrim nodded with gentle eyes and reached out to rub Niemann's head. Although Niemann's figure has returned to normal proportions, well, it's not normal, I should say it's super normal, very explosive and sexy. Coupled with her already very cute and beautiful face, it's great. Top-class beauties. However, her height has not shrunk, and she is still not inferior to Aether or too many Ram, and compared to her current situation, she looks very tall. But that's okay, Doflamingo is also a long-legged Appa anyway, this seems to match well. Speaking of Doflamingo, Orgrim turned his head and glanced at Doflamingo, who was sitting in a wheelchair, looking pitiful. He was very surprised. What is going on with you? Was my sister beaten like this? Could it be that you saw that Niemann has regained her beautiful appearance, can't help but feel lustful? Want to use strength? Was he killed in the end? But looking at Niemann's expression, it doesn't seem like that. Especially, Orgrim vaguely understood something in his heart, that is, Niemann seemed to have a good impression of Doflamingo. Otherwise, Orgrim would not forcefully arrange for his sister to be killed. Niemann couldn't happily go to Dressrosa to work as a secretary. If Doflamingo really wants to, it's not like the two of them would be in such trouble. You, Dover, this is, Orgrim hesitated again and again, but couldn't help but ask. Doflamingo had a sad expression on his face, but finally said yes, he was beaten by Niemann. Niemann also had a very embarrassed look on her face. But it's not her fault. After all, she was on the verge of awakening her devil fruit ability at that time. At that moment, her ability would burst out to the greatest extent and then fully awaken. She didn't mean it either, Doflamingo still explained to Niemann. Niemann also nodded quickly and said yes, brother, I didn't mean to hurt Dove. Afterwards, Doflamingo and Niemann briefly explained the scene, and Orgrim and others finally figured it out. Kaido was staring at Niemann with great interest, muttering something like, if I had a younger brother, from time to time. The Sphinx grabbed Niemann and asked questions, looking like a curious baby. Orgrim looked at Doflamingo strangely and asked, is this the day we contacted? That's right, Doflamingo nodded and said. How long has it been? Aren't you going to tell us the news? Orgrim said with some displeasure. I really want to say it, but Nemenfe said that I would give you a surprise in person, Doflamingo also said helplessly. You're the boss, right? My young master, Niemann is just your secretary, you can't make the decision? Orgrim said helplessly. Doflamingo reluctantly raised his arm, pointed at his miserable appearance, and asked, when you said this, did you consider my feelings? Look at me like this, can you make the decision? Orgrim looked a little embarrassed after hearing this. Ahem, forget it this time, we can't do this next time. Let's go into the city. The sea wind is strong here, Orgrim said as he stood behind Doflamingo and naturally pushed the young master's wheelchair. Don't no way, he couldn't help but want to laugh when he looked at Doflamingo in the wheelchair. Hey, Dover, let me just say my sister must be a hot commodity, right? How about it? Do you want to be my brother-in-law? Orgrim pushed Doflamingo forward and asked in a low voice, while Kaido and the others chatted behind him. Doflamingo's expression looked a little tangled and hesitant. He didn't seem to know how to answer for a while. In the past, although Orgrim also meant this, he was more or less reserved. This time, he went straight to the topic. Seeing that Doflamingo didn't speak for a long time, Orgrim asked with some displeasure. Said what? What's so bad about my sister that I don't like it in your eyes? Everything is good, especially after the ability is awakened, Doflamingo said without hesitation. Then why are you hesitating? Orgrim put his head against Doflamingo's ear and asked in a low voice through gritted teeth. Mr. Hammer, but she is too strong, I am afraid of domestic violence. Doflamingo couldn't help but say this. Orgrim couldn't help but want to laugh when he thought of the scene where Doflamingo was pinned to the ground by Niemann and violently hammered. But he still kept a straight face, pretending to be serious, and said, what are you talking about? How can I make you suffer such a loss? Our Kazijero's family is very well educated, and Niemann will not do such a thing. I will support you. I don't believe a word of what you said. Also, isn't Niemann's surname Karanda? Doflamingo retorted without hesitation. Ha 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 ha, what's this? From now on, your child will be called Kajgro Karanda, Orgrim said with a smile. My Don Quixote family doesn't deserve a surname, Doflamingo said unhappily. Then, Kazijero's Don Quixote Karanda, is that okay? Does this count? Orgrim said casually. Don Quixote Kazijero's Karanda is not much different, Doflamingo couldn't help but muttered. But for some reason, after saying this, Orgrim and Doflamingo both laughed in perfect agreement. Family, Orgrim murmured with a smile. Yeah, family, Doflamingo also smiled and whispered. As people who have lost everything, their family may be the softest thing in their hearts for evil pirates like them, right? A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 532. In the courtyard of Orgrim, Queen Stussy and Niemann were chatting about something. It seemed that Queen Stussy was very envious of Niemann. From time to time she would reach out and touch Niemann's firm and delicate skin, and then the two beauties would start laughing coquettishly, not knowing what they were talking about. On the side, Sphinx, the legal Lolita, was having fun with Runty, the illegal Lolita. Maybe it's because their temperaments and personalities are very similar. In short, the relationship between Sphinx and Runty is very good. But what's a little funny is that Sphinx often competes with Runty for the title of eldest sister. Sometimes the two little guys get angry and even fight over it. Moreover, the Sphinx did not feel at all that he was bullying the smaller ones, and would ride on Runty and beat her at every turn. But after fighting and making trouble, these two little Lolita didn't seem to remember anything. It didn't take long before they looked like good sisters again. The only one who is more miserable is Peggy Wan. Originally, there was a biological sister, Runty, who was already being bullied miserably. Now the Sphinx has also shifted its goal and interest from Lucci to Peggy Wan. Being bullied by Sphinx and Runty in different ways all day long was extremely miserable. Unfortunately, no one can make the decision for him. I can only vent my sorrows to Lucci in my spare time. Two victims will denounce Sphinx and Runty together. But this is all we can do. Brothers in distress. However, this kind of thing seems to have promoted the development of the relationship between Peggy Wan and Lucci. In short, Runty and Peggy Wan have been very cleverly integrated into the larger environment of the Warhammer Pirates. I see that your brother Orgrim intends to get you and Dover together. Queen Stussy raised her eyebrows in a funny way and looked at Niemann. Niemann's face turned slightly red, and she said with some embarrassment, Sister Stussy, don't always say these things. Ha ha ha, Niemann is still shy. But seriously, do you have any interest or feelings for Dover? This kind of thing still depends on yourself. If you are not satisfied, sister, I will make the decision for you. No one can force you to do anything. I will go and talk to Orgrim. Stacy said with great loyalty. Neiman was coy again and looked at him. Stacy roughly understood in her heart. This little girl still has this idea, she just feels embarrassed. That's it? In that case, there is nothing to stop her. So Queen Stussy smiled again and said, you beat Dover like this. It seems that your strength should be much stronger than him. Neiman shook her head seriously this time and said, you can't think like this. At that time, it was Dover who forcibly withstood my attack in order to help me awaken my ability. In the end, I couldn't hold back my strength, so I did it. In this way, although Dover's strength has indeed always been somewhat, it's a pity, but that's only compared to the people of my brother's group. For most people, Dover's strength is still very strong. For me, the same is true. It's just that his fighting style is different from that of others. Habits are not the kind of head-to-head confrontation. This time, I used my disadvantage to hit my strength. If it were a fair fight, it would be hard to say whether I would win or lose. That's right, Stussy rubbed her chin and muttered. Then she said with a smile, but no matter what, you are not allowed to do this in the future. You are a big beauty now. You have to give full play to your advantages and let that guy Dover be fascinated by you. You can't hit someone every once in a while. Sister Stussy, what do you think of me? Neiman complained with some dissatisfaction. Then the two started laughing and joking again. At this moment, Beckman walked into the courtyard with Plank holding a lot of documents in his hands. At this time, Beckman walked into the courtyard with Plank. Doflamingo and the others have been here for 3 days. Beckman and Neiman have also met them, and naturally they are very excited and happy, so there is no need to go into details. Second brother. Neiman smiled and nodded to Beckman and said hello. Beckman also smiled at her, and then Queen Stussy said, Orgrim and the others are all inside, waiting for you. Beckman smacked his lips and said, they are all a bunch of hands-off shopkeepers. As a little brother like me, I can only run errands. After complaining, without saying anything more, Beckman and Plank walked toward the big house in the courtyard. The people in the yard were still chatting together. When he opened the door, he saw Orgrim sitting on the sofa in the main seat, holding a cigar in his mouth and a teacup in his hand. On the sofa in the row to his left, Kaido's tall and muscular figure was sitting there. Kaido didn't smoke, but he held a large wine bottle in his hand and smelled of alcohol. Of course, with Kaido's ability to drink enough to make Orgrim vomit, this little drink would have no effect on him at all. Doflamingo was very miserable. He was not actually here for medical parole. After all, it was not a particularly serious injury. They just used the excuse of seeking medical treatment as a cover for Neiman so that Neiman could give Orgrim and the others a surprise. However, Nightingale still showed Doflamingo a look and found that there was nothing wrong with him, just a few broken bones. It doesn't even affect his walking. I don't know why Doflamingo chose to come to Avalon in a wheelchair. Orgrim seriously suspected that this guy just wanted to make Neiman suffer, right? But it didn't reveal anything about him. Of course, as a patient, Doflamingo was banned from drinking at this time. It was not Nightingale who asked him to stop drinking, but Neiman. Doflamingo felt that he was enjoying it too, and he cooperated with Neiman obediently. This somewhat surprised Orgrim. Did the cold and evil young master also find his own salvation in the mire of darkness? Maybe, maybe not. All in all, this is a good thing. At this time, Doflamingo could only hold the wine glass in his hand, with juice poured inside. The expressions of the three of them now are very serious, and they seem to be talking about some serious topics. With Avalon's current system and strength, it does not take 10 or 8 years to absorb Amazon Lily. So far, everything is going well. The entire Amazon Lily is very cooperative with us. In 3 years at most, the integration is complete. During this period, our Avalon will also conduct the third round of military expansion. By the time, Orgrim exhaled a stream of smoke. Kaido didn't look like a playful smile with Orgrim at this time. He took a sip of wine and then said in a deep voice, "See, my brother, your plan is to make Avalon truly become a country system." Doflamingo heard this and glanced at Orgrim from the corner of his eye, as if waiting for Orgrim's answer. At this time, Beckman and Plank opened the door and walked in. The door was not closed tightly, so Beckman heard some of the discussion outside the door. As soon as he entered the door, he continued the conversation and said directly, "Let me answer for Orgrim. In fact, we have been thinking about this matter in the past 2 years, and various cotters have also expressed different opinions on it. Dove also knows his views, right?" Doflamingo smiled, nodded, and said, "Of course, he knows a little bit about the direction of the trend. Well, before this, we, the Warhammer pirates, have always defined Avalon as a blood bank, a basic plan used to supply us with blood and support our rapid development. As for this basic plan, what will it become in the end? In this way, we didn't care at all whether there would be any major internal problems that would lead to rapid collapse or something," Beckman said without hesitation. Kaido also nodded and said, "Yes, this is the way we pirates do things, and the same is true for me and the country. What will this country become, to me? It doesn't matter, as long as it can support the rapid development of our beasts pirates." At this point, Kaido paused for a moment, and then continued, "But it seems that your Warhammer pirates are going to follow Lingling's old path. In fact, if Orgrim had not been born, the Yonko pirates would have been in the group. Only Charlotte Lingling's Totland Wongwo has the most development potential and future. It's the kind of sustainable development. Perhaps compared to other franchised countries, this pirate country seems very evil and twisted, and even has to pay something like a soul tax. But in the New World, the existence of this country is reasonable, because there are a lot of people in the New World who simply cannot survive. The average lifespan of a person is already very low, so being able to sacrifice part of one's soul in exchange for a safe living environment is already very good. That's right, Charlotte Lingling wasn't forcibly going to various places to plunder the population. It was a large number of refugees who were crying and clamoring to enter Totland Wongwo to pay taxes to Charlotte Lingling. In comparison, Kaido, Whitebeard, or the red-haired guy. In short, they are not as good as Charlotte Lingling in terms of developing their power. However, in the current time and space, Charlotte Lingling's development plan was directly interrupted by Orgrim. Therefore, it seems that she has become the most miserable character among the 4 emperors. This makes it seem like all her previous attempts have failed. In fact, it was not that Charlotte Lingling failed. It was just a failure in personal strength and a series of choices after the end of Shiji and Roger. Taking the lead against an emerging force like Orgrim, I haven't been able to defeat him yet. Previously, her various policies were quite powerful. Kaido said that Orgrim was going to follow Charlotte Lingling's old path, which meant that Orgrim and the others were expanding their army, developing Avalon on a large scale, and all the other initiatives they had taken in the past 2 years. They are no longer just sucking the blood of Avalon as before, but are preparing to make Avalon develop sustainably. This feeling is just like Charlotte Lingling's attempt to create a powerful, evil, and dark pirate nation. What surprised Kaido was that it was clear that Charlotte Lingling had taken this path, and was obviously in a slump, which seemed to prove that this approach did not work. Why are Orgrim and the others still going like this? Just like him, Kaido, continue to suck blood, squeeze out the last drop of Avalon's blood, then walk away and change goals. Wouldn't it be nice? It's possible to find new ways to take old paths, Orgrim smiled and said. Beckman also followed up and said this is also a brand new attempt. No one has walked this way before. We, the Warhammer pirates, want to go out. Once this road is worked out, Boss Kaido, This matter will benefit the entire pirate camp, and... When Beckman said this, he paused for a moment. Kaido seemed to have thought of something, his eyes flashed and he said, "And Orgrim, do you want to use this new method to become the Pirate King?" Orgrim grinned and said, "Yes, Rogers, that set is obviously not in line with my Orgrim style. If I find Rafe Drew, I will be the Pirate King? Maybe. But I have no intention of claiming the king like this." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 533. Wear new shoes instead of walking in the same old shoes. In fact, people at the level of Orgrim and Kaido, who hasn't come up with their own ideas yet? No one is willing to follow the script arranged by Roger. Why did you find that Ralph Drew is the Pirate King? How could this be said before Roger? Ralph Drew didn't even exist at that time. Of course, at that time there was only the Pirate Overlord, not the Pirate King. Perhaps, in the end, they will all look for Ralph Drew to satisfy their curiosity or something. But none of them are the kind of people who are willing to become the Pirate King in this way. Especially Orgrim. There is really not much interest in Ralph Drew. In his opinion, Ralph Drew obviously has special significance. Roger and the others found this island and the things they discovered on it also have a lot of special significance. However, these special meanings are not a pirate's business. Just be your own pirate, okay? What time is too early? Can you stop being a pirate and taking charge of this important matter of the rise and fall of the world? Can you be more dedicated? Aren't you afraid that you won't be blessed during the new year? If you are a pirate, don't meddle in such noisy matters. You don't care what nonsense happened 800 years ago. You care what black and white materials the world government has? Whatever makes you feel comfortable is fine, right? Orgrim did not intend to carry the world on his back like Roger. He only wanted to carry the future of those who dared to bet their wealth and life on him. In the new world, gradually build a dark, powerful, and evil pirate kingdom. This is Orgrim's idea in recent years. Whether it's the dark world or pirates, they all belong to the camp of chaos and evil, and they all represent the dark side of the world. As the king of darkness, he naturally has to take all these factors into consideration. Of course he would choose to pursue the title of Pirate King. And Orgrim must defeat all enemies and opponents and establish his own hegemony to become king. So, back to a simple question. The evil, powerful, and dark king of the pirate kingdom. What kind of king should I call him? The answer is exactly, One Piece. This is the path Orgrim has prepared for himself. He will use this to become king. This kind of path was not something he had thought about long ago, but was taken step by step. Indeed, a long time ago, when he went to sea, he also thought about becoming the Pirate King, but he had no idea how to go about it. Later, as he became stronger step by step and the momentum he carried became greater and greater, he naturally found his way to the present. Although Kaido appears to be a reckless man, he is very wise in some aspects. Therefore, he understood Orgrim's intention immediately. This made Kaido's look at Orgrim a little complicated. Appreciate, still appreciate. But although they are allies, they seem destined to have a war. If Orgrim does this, once it succeeds, the Warhammer pirates will become even more powerful, and even the entire new world will be shrouded in their shadow. How can I fight with Orgrim? Is it possible to challenge him one-on-one? Thinking of this, Kaido was stunned again. Why can't it be a one-on-one fight? But this was obviously not the time to dwell on this issue, and Kaido quickly suppressed his thoughts. He couldn't help but said, "You are right. If you really follow this plan, once you succeed, it may change the structure of the entire pirate camp. It will even affect the ideas and future of our pirates in the future, But brother Orgrim, you have to think carefully. Your Avalon now looks prosperous and the situation is good. It is called the Dark Holy Land. Something like that, but the problem is, this is just the territory of your Warhammer pirates. If you want to transform it into a national system, the drawbacks of Avalon are really too great. This is all because of you. I was not prepared for this before, so the risk is very high. If it fails, the consequences will be disastrous, and it is very likely that the entire family fortune over the years will be lost. Orgrim nodded, not minding Kaido's accusation. In fact, what Kaido said was all the truth. Don't look at how good Avalon is now, what about the Dark Holy Land and the Avalon-based plutocrats? Making money, opening a bank, and setting up a neutral zone are all hot and popular. However, this is not viewed from the perspective of a country, but only from the perspective of a force and territory under Orgrim. If you want to transform into a system like a country, the simplest, but particularly harsh problem is right in front of you. Avalon has a population of tens of millions, and there is not much of a ruling class at all. Bureaucratic system. It's such a terrible system, but it is undeniable that even if it reaches the level of civilization like Orgrim's previous life, the one with the widest audience in the world is still the bureaucracy. This system, Orgrim thought there is no way to crack it. There is no way to come up with a more advanced system. And even if there is one, it is completely unsuitable for their pirate country. So, if you want to get rid of the ruling class of Avalon, you must have people who are loyal to Austria. Only the bureaucracy of Grimm and the others of the Warhammer pirates will do. Now, not at all. To put it simply, Avalon has always been ruled by high-pressure powers, without a mature and effective bureaucracy to operate, focusing on all aspects. As for Charlotte Lingling, not to mention how good she is in this aspect, she is better than Orgrim anyway. After all, they have a ministerial system with the family as the core, which can be called a simplified bureaucracy. Orgrim, to put it bluntly, said that after leaving Avalon and going to the other 4 islands, he didn't even know who was in charge of what. Whenever something happens, I don't know who to ask. Beckman also said in a deep voice at this time, Boss Kaido, you are right. We still have many problems here, such as the issue of financial separation, the definition of national ideals, the division of territories, and so on, but it's not the most urgent issue. Currently, the most urgent issue before us is to cultivate a ruling class loyal to the Warhammer pirates. Kaido listened to Beckman's words and nodded, agreeing with Beckman's statement. All other issues can be postponed. With Orgrim's power suppressing them, at least until he falls, there will be no problems, and adjustments can be made slowly in the future. The only and most pressing issue before us is the issue of the ruling class. However, after more than 10 years of development, Avalon still has a group of loyal middle and lower level cotters that can be used. Although it is not enough, they can be used as a reserve of core department cotters after the future transformation. The number is still enough. So, the problem is it depends on how to select the huge underlying ruling class, Beckman said softly. Kaido looked at Beckman without speaking. He was also curious and wanted to see what method Beckman would use. I saw a smile on Beckman's lips, and said there are indeed many stable and reliable methods. If we slowly unfold them, this problem can be solved, but unfortunately, this type of method requires a lot of time, and we are unwilling, or rather, not so much time. So what? Doflamingo asked at this time. Beckman smiled and said without hesitation, therefore, we are prepared to use war to divert internal conflicts, and select a large number of meritorious talents through war, filled into this plan, they will become the guaranteed force for our Avalon transformation. This is one of the reasons why we want to expand our army. Therefore, after the integration of Amazon Lily, we will be the first to launch a new round of the New World Kingship battle. Actually, there are many flaws in Beckman's idea. But that is for a normal country. For example, if a meritorious class is selected through war as rulers, there is no doubt that they will be born with radical label. It represents armed power. To put it simply, it can turn into militarism in minutes. This kind of thing is indeed of no benefit to a normal country. But if it were done in look at it on a pirate, it seems like that's all. Of course, this is just a matter of following the emergency, and you can continue to adjust it in the future. Moreover, Orgrim also needs a group of people who dare to fight, are looking forward to fighting, and are willing to fight, to extend his ruling power. Kingship struggle, Kaido's eyes flashed. He no longer bothered with the thoughts of Orgrim and the others. No matter how much they said, it was still the Warhammer pirates' own business. Kaido's reminder was enough, and he couldn't control that much. But he was very interested in the fact that the Warhammer pirates wanted to take the lead in starting a war. This time when he came to see Orgrim, he probably smelled this smell. It can even be said that not only Kaido, but also the top bosses in the world can feel something more or less. For example, the Navy's Grand Admiral Sengoku. After all, such things often cannot be hidden, because most of them have an inducement and a reason. Looking at the New World now, stability and peace are maintained on the surface. But in fact, the interests and appetites of the four major pirate groups have not been satisfied. Even the navy that is not in the New World is ready to stir up trouble. Charlotte Lingling doesn't dare to take the lead now because she doesn't have enough cards in her hand. If she has any chance to make a comeback, do you think she will jump? This is true for Kaido, Orgrim, Whitebeard, and others. Whitebeard, perhaps waiting for a chance to kill Orgrim, can regain his strongest reputation. Augur is for Mew, he wants to dominate the crowd. Currently, Kaido, Charlotte Lingling, Whitebeard and him are collectively known as the Four Emperors. Although some are strong and some are weak, in the eyes of the world, they are all of the same class, and they are all pirate emperors. But now, there is a reputation that none of them have gained. That is, kill another pirate emperor. Once this is done, the level will be greatly improved again. He is closer to the strongest pirate, to the location of the pirate king, etc. At the same time, this kind of thing will inevitably be accompanied by a large number of dividends, which will once again strengthen the power of the winner. Orgrim's fundamental appeal in this war is this. However, it was still the planning period, and he hadn't even decided who to target first. Of course, let's exclude Kaido first. So, Charlotte Lingling and Whitebeard Edward Newgate. One is weak and the other is strong. Although they are both pirate emperors, the values they represent are very different. And the risks are also very different. How to choose, and what to do after choosing. This is the real difficulty of Orgrim. Who are you going to fight? Kaido asked directly. Orgrim and Beckman both smiled helplessly and said, I haven't thought about it yet. Isn't this just a good time to discuss it with you? After all, we are allies. If we really want to fight, we must fight together. Once I seize the opportunity and start a war for kingship, it will definitely bring the entire New World and even the Navy into it. We need to be well ventilated in advance. Okay. I'm so exhausted today. I expect the number of updates to be the same as before resumption on the 8th or 9th. I've been really busy these days, so please forgive me. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 534. The first half of the Grand Line, the desert country Alabasta. Crocodile's base camp, Rainland. Among the underground facilities of Yuyan, the famous casino in this oasis city. Crocodile was sitting in his boss chair at this time. His feet were propped up on the desk in front of him, and he was holding a cigar in his mouth. His demeanor and expression looked a bit arrogant, but if you look closely, there was also a hint of displeasure. Not far away, on another desk, Nicole Albia was also observing the situation on Crocodile's side. In front of Crocodile's desk stood a man with a short hair. It was none other than the number one figure in the Baroque working group, Das Bonus. He is also Crocodile's most trusted subordinate. In other words, the only trusted subordinate. Although Albia and Crocodile were in the same room. But in fact, she has never gained Crocodile's trust so far. Even though Crocodile didn't shy away from her about many things, she still didn't know much about Crocodile's various arrangements. I can only listen carefully when Das Bonus comes to report some work occasionally, so as to deduce Crocodile's plans and arrangements. I don't know why, but Crocodile didn't stop anything. Perhaps this is also a subtle accumulation of trust between the two parties. You mean, that idiot refused my invitation? Crocodile listened to Bones' report and sneered. Das Bones nodded expressionlessly and said, "That's right, I met him in person and gave you your personal letter from the boss. I gave it to that guy, but after he read it, he rejected your invitation very disdainfully and said a lot of things shamelessly. He said ugly words and then tore the letter into pieces." Crocodile slowly exhaled a puff of smoke and sneered, "He is indeed a waste. Have you noticed what that guy is doing?" "Don't know much about it, but there are some subtle findings," Bonus said softly. "Let's talk about it." Crocodile raised his eyebrows and said, "On that terrifying three-mast ship, there were many things that were unknown whether they were dead or alive. Mariah called them zombie. It seemed that he was preparing to build an undead legion or something. At the same time, according to the story from earlier years, comparing the photos, it is very obvious that his figure has become very bloated, and his aura is no longer as heroic as in the photos. It can even be said that he feels a little useless." Bonus thought for a moment and then responded, "That's right, this guy was sent to see Moonlight Moria by Crocodile not long ago. The two sides had secret contacts. Crocodile was very arrogant, and in his heart he actually looked down on Mariah, the most useless king of the Kabuki. But he shouldn't let his eldest brother make fun of his second brother. After all, among the king's Shichibukai sequence, his reputation is no better than Moria's." So when thinking about his secret plans and arrangements, Crocodile considered it from the perspective of conspiracy theory. He did not rule out that Moria was also an old scheming guy, holding back his ultimate move or something. Therefore, sending Das Bonus to contact him can be regarded as a test to observe this guy's situation. On the other hand, although Crocodile doesn't really intend to work together as an equal with anyone, he doesn't object or dislike using each other, forming a pirate alliance, and doing things together. In his current state, he is not suitable to stand out, so the allies he is looking for should also keep a low profile, to avoid being led to the wrong rhythm. Therefore, Moria came into Crocodile's sight. Although Moria is a loser, he is still one of the 7 warriors under the king. Before contact, Crocodile was not sure what state he was in. But no matter how bad he is still better than many people in the sea. As a person to be used, he still has some value. At the same time, Crocodile did not want to find someone stronger than himself, or someone who was evenly matched to cooperate. Otherwise, he could go to red-haired Shanks. Precisely because he knew very well that he couldn't control Shanks, he made no move in this regard. In the end, the low-key King Shichibukai and loser Moria just became a very suitable target for Crocodile to utilize. Crocodile thought that maybe he could let Moria be his first mover and take the lead in exploring the new world. Therefore, in the name of cooperation, he asked Bonus to meet this guy Moria to see what he was like and understand his attitude. As a result, Moria also completely looked down on Crocodile and rejected Crocodile's cooperation proposal without hesitation. Now, he is focused on creating an undead army. When the time comes, he will march into the new world, punch Kaido, step on Orgrim, etc. Speaking of which, in the original story, the reason why Moria created the zombie army was because he believed that if he didn't have it from the beginning, he wouldn't lose it at all. His subordinates were dead from the beginning, so no matter what the loss was, it didn't matter to him. Now, maybe I still have this idea, but there are also some factors of Orgrim's influence in it. Moria felt that that bastard Orgrim was able to gain a foothold in the New World and become the only 4 emperors among their group of contemporaries just because he couldn't be killed. Then if he creates an undead army, won't he go to heaven? And that bastard Kaido, isn't it also because of his immortality that he is so powerful? In short, Moria today is very obsessed with the attribute of immortality. In addition, he was really depraved and didn't understand Crocodile. He thought Crocodile was a loser, so he refused Crocodile's invitation to cooperate without hesitation. This guy Bonus is also much more powerful than in the original story, because he was truly trained by Crocodile as his confidant. Perhaps his current strength is still not as good as the large number of masters in the New World, but because he has been with Crocodile for many years, he still has some vision. From Moria, he couldn't feel the terrifying aura of his boss that appeared and disappeared at all. So he believed that Moria was probably really a loser. Crocodile listened to Bonus's answer and sneered, the undead army. What a delusional idiot. People must rely on themselves. After a short pause, Crocodile no longer bothered with Moria, a loser, and said in a deep voice, since this idiot is unreasonable, we don't need to focus on him anymore. Although, in this way, Mr. A man who went to explore the New World, but the Warhammer pirates annexed Amazon Lily, replenished a large number of troops, and even started a 3rd round of recruitment. Just wait and see. Once Orgrim finishes what he has to do, he will start a war again in the New World. By then, there will naturally be people who will explore the way for us. Who could it be? Bonus asked curiously. Crocodile smiled evilly and said softly, the red-haired. Red hair? Bonus was stunned for a moment, and then said, but boss, aren't they very reliable? Although they are both members of the Shishibukai, they have already failed once in the New World. Even the Warhammer pirates did not use their full strength, the red-haired pirates were kicked out of the New World. That guy is not that simple. Crocodile didn't explain anything, just dealt with it casually, and then said with a little emotion, it's just that that guy is not easy to control. If we really need to use it, he is not as smooth as Moria, and we should not contact him. Arousing his vigilance, however, he will definitely take action. As for what tricks he is up to, it will naturally be revealed when the time comes. Bonus heard that his boss was so confident, so he didn't ask any more questions. He slowly exhaled another puff of smoke, then picked up the teacup on the table. Crocodile took a sip, moistened his throat, and then he continued, Orgrim has always been neat and tidy. This time, it won't be delayed for too long. Maybe we can't catch up with the chaos this time, but it doesn't matter, the one who laughs last is the winner. Let them have fun first. Bonus, we have to do our own thing well. Got it, boss. Bonus responded quickly. Crocodile nodded at Bonus, then took his feet back from the table, opened a drawer under the desk, took out a document from it, and threw it to Bonus, said, this is what Orbia has recently gained. It can be confirmed that in Alabasta, in the hands of the Nefertali royal family, their Aratha block is deeply hidden in the historical text, and its specific location is currently unknown. Previously, Crocodile also had this kind of speculation, but it was still speculation after all. Now, Albia has used various materials and documents, as well as the help and intelligence provided by Crocodile. It is completely confirmed that the Nefertali royal family definitely has a very important historical text in their hands. In recent times, Albia has indeed been subtly influenced by Crocodile, and the darkness and hatred in his heart have been amplified a lot. She didn't hide anything, and told Crocodile that there was indeed a great possibility that this historical text could hide the secret of the ancient weapon Pluto. Bonus didn't speak, and Crocodile didn't seem to want to listen to what he had to say. After a slight pause, he continued, maybe we won't be able to keep up with the chaos in the New World, but we should also speed up our pace. Continue to increase the amount of dancing powder smuggled from Avalon, and at the same time, get ready to organize a rebel army, cause some small-scale chaos, smuggle some arms from Avalon, and arm these idiots. Yes, Boss Bonus still responded very coldly. However, when Crocodile mentioned Avalon, his expression was always a little unnatural. He was obviously thinking of using Avalon as his imaginary enemy and wanted to surpass Orgrim, to fulfill his crocodile ambition. But sometimes, you have to get something from Avalon. This feeling of capitalizing the enemy is really uncomfortable. On the other side, Albia was also constantly sorting out the information obtained from the conversation between Crocodile and the others, roughly guessing some information, and what was he thinking in his mind. At this moment, Crocodile suddenly called her. Albia. Crocodile looked over there and said. Albia suddenly came back to his senses, looked at Crocodile and said, "What are you doing?" Her tone was not very polite and lacked awe. Bonus frowned slightly. He respected his boss very much, so he hated others being disrespectful to Crocodile. But Crocodile did not treat Albia. Regardless of her dissatisfaction, he didn't care about her attitude. He just gave instructions: "If you can find Hades before I complete all the layout, then I will tell you the information about Nico Robin in advance." A flash of light flashed in Albia's eyes, and she said softly, "I will try my best." Crocodile nodded, and then looked at the sea chart spread on the table, where the new world was drawn. His eyes were placed on the island of Avalon, and it seemed that he had transcended time and space and saw the evil and arrogant figure in Rogtown. "Orgrim, this time, who will you target?" Crocodile whispered softly. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 535. Admiralty Marineford. In the office of the Warring States Marshal. At this time, Sengoku, the naval marshal, was sitting at his desk, talking to a phone bug on the desk. That was just Garp's personal behavior. He didn't use the power of the Navy, nor did he do anything excessive. So even if I am the marshal, I can't restrict him. What's more, you should know that guy very well. What gave you the illusion that the marshal could order Garp? If this were possible, that guy would already be a general, the Warring States Marshal said to the phone worm with a cheerful smile. As soon as he finished speaking, the voice of red-haired Shanks came from the phone worm. "Does your Navy always do one thing on the surface but another behind the scenes? After all, I am the king of the Shishibukai, and I am your partner. Doesn't that guy Garp have to do business? Chasing me all day," Shanks complained angrily. "Redhead, the cause of this incident is not our Navy's fault, nor is it Garp's fault. It's you who insists on provoking Garp's grandson. Now that little guy is determined to become a pirate, do you think Garp can bear it?" Sengoku said, a little funny. Although he secretly cooperated and joined forces with the red-haired guy. But Sengoku is still the Marshal of the Navy, and he hates pirates like them. Just for some plans, he can endure this. It's disgusting. But seeing that bastard Shanks being chased by Garp was very annoying, and he didn't lose his temper, so he was very happy. "Let me say it again, I had no idea Luffy was the grandson of Lieutenant General Garp," Shanks said with some annoyance. After a slight pause, before Sengoku could speak, Shanks continued, "Also, Marshal Sengoku, although the new world is still calm on the surface, behind the scenes, there is a turbulent situation. You can't see the situation, can you? In 3 years at most, a new round of war will be started by Orgrim. If you still want me to play a role, don't ask Garp to bother me." When Shanks mentioned this topic, Marshal Sengoku's originally relaxed expression calmed down and became much more serious. "What are you up to, Marshal of the Warring States?" asked in a deep voice. "This must be an opportunity. I concluded that the Orgrim guy will definitely take action against Whitebeard. When the time comes, as long as his attention is caught, I will take advantage of the situation to start a war against the Big Mom pirates, Shanks said without hesitation, with no intention of hiding anything. Marshal Waring State's expression changed. Red hair. Now, there is no evidence or sign at all to detect Orgrim's plans and goals. How can you be sure that he will attack Whitebeard? After a slight pause, before Shanks could speak, Marshal Sengoku asked, and no matter how you look at it, the most vulnerable group in the New World is the Big Mom pirates, right? If Orgrim wants to take action, judging from the actual situation, he is more likely to take action against the Big Mom pirates. Possibility? Ha 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 ha, Shanks suddenly burst out laughing after listening to the Sengoku Marshal's words. The Warring States Marshal had a dark expression and said, "What are you laughing at? Marshal of the Warring States period, you have been fighting against Orgrim for so many years, haven't you seen one thing clearly? Ah, that's right, this is the disadvantage of being in the game, right? Let me ask you, when did Orgrim begin to be measured by possibilities? In other words, over the years, has he done so many things that are beyond your expectations and represent impossibility? Don't make me laugh, okay?" Shanks said with sarcasm in his tone. The Warring States Marshal's expression was slightly stunned. It seemed that what this guy said made sense. But soon, he realized that this was not the case. Orgrim would go to war against Whitebeard. No matter how much you say, it's just your speculation, right? There is not enough reason to support, Marshal of the Warring States period couldn't help but retort. Reason? Marshal, you are a navy, and you don't understand pirates at all. Orgrim and I have no enmity, but we must be enemies. Why? I don't want to discuss these answers with you. I only want to say one thing, Orgrim has already defeated Charlotte Lingling. He doesn't need to use Charlotte Lingling to prove anything. Now, on the sea, except for Kai, most of his hardcore allies include Whitebeard, the only opponent he can't avoid. As a pirate, he will definitely target Newgate, Shanks said decisively. The Warring States Marshal opened his mouth, wanting to refute something, but he didn't know what to say. It was clear that Shanks was just speculating, saying a lot of specious truths, and there was no practical basis. The evidence and significance of the above. However, there was a voice in Sengoku's heart, constantly telling him that Shanks's inferences were probably correct. It seemed that he felt Marshal Sengoku's hesitation. Shanks was there was also a smile on the corner of the phone bug's mouth. Finally, I finally took the initiative and the upper hand for a while. Before, whether facing Orgrim or Warring States, Shanks could feel it feels like they have controlled the rhythm of themselves. Now, he reverses and begins to lead the Navy Grand Admiral's rhythm. This feeling, very cool. Finally, a bit like a big shot. Now, I am talking to the Naval Marshal Sengoku. In the future, I may not be able to talk to people of a higher level like the 5 old stars like Orgrim. But this was not the time to be immersed in this kind of pleasure. Shanks quickly dismissed his messy thoughts and said in a deep voice, "The last reason is that Newgate is no longer young." As soon as Kess finished speaking, a flash of light suddenly flashed in the eyes of the Warring States Marshal. Yes, Newgate is no longer young. Is Orgrim shameless? Shameless. Despicable. Mean. But is he proud? Of course he is proud. As Orgrim's opponent, Marshal Warring States has no doubt about this. Perhaps he is despicable, shameless, and nasty. But as an opponent, it seems that Orgrim is indeed a very proud person, especially in terms of his own strength. This may seem complicated, but Orgrim is. In many aspects, he can have no integrity, but only in terms of strength, Orgrim has always been unyielding. Back on the Chambord Islands, facing himself and other admirals, Orgrim did not lower his head. During the Battle of Butter Island, he would rather fight with Newgate until the island completely sank and both of them fell into the deep sea, than to stop and retreat first. I just want to fight you to the end. Maybe this is the pride that Orgrim guy wants to hold onto at all costs, right? So, how can a proud man like him really tell the difference between Newgate and Newgate? Are you waiting for Newgate to grow old and frail, and then find a way to kill Newgate after he declines from his peak? No, it's impossible. Orgrim will definitely launch a decisive battle again when Newgate is at his peak to determine the strongest one. How many years are left until Newgate's peak period? It may not be a few years, so Orgrim can't wait too long. Therefore, the less time Newgate has, the less time he, Orgrim, also has. Suddenly, the Warring States Marshal suddenly understood some issues. Perhaps, even without Amazon Lily joining Avalon's system? Maybe, within 3 to 5 years at the latest, Orgrim will launch a new round of war for kingship. For no other reason than to defeat Whitebeard Edward Newgate in an upright manner. Thinking of this, Warring States broke into a cold sweat. After all, in his original thinking, he thought that if there was no right time, maybe the new world would be stable for many years, 10 or 20 years, it was possible. But now I understand that even if there is no chance, the crazy Orgrim will not wait that long. Maybe this is a pirate. Crazy and chaotic. In most cases, he will pursue profits, but in some cases, he will do anything illogical and do illogical things. If I hadn't been as vigilant as today, I'm afraid, I might have been caught off guard, right? In fact, Orgrim really thought so. From the perspective of benefits, difficulty, and other aspects. His best choice is indeed to fight Charlotte Lingling, trying to defeat her directly in one breath, and the 4 emperors will become 3 emperors. But, he still can't let go of that bastard Newgate. Therefore, he has been hesitating, discussing, and studying. But isn't this an answer? Some people say that when you are in doubt, just flip a coin, because the moment the coin is tossed, you already know your answer. And Orgrim, this is not the case now. He knew what the wisest choice was, but he still hesitated. This already represented his answer, isn't it? After calming down, Marshal Warring States said in a deep voice, in this case, I will restrain Garp's behavior, red-haired. Thank you very much, Warring States period. Shanks didn't add the suffix marshal this time, and he was obviously a little unhappy. However, Warring States didn't care about this, and instead asked, however, when you contact me this time, you don't just want to tell me this, right? Of course, according to the original agreement, your navy should provide me with secret assistance at certain necessary moments, Shanks said solemnly. Tell me Marshal Warring States didn't agree at all, but asked first. Shanks smiled and then said, don't be so nervous. I don't intend to ask your navy for too many things. After all, we don't trust each other very much anyway, and the thing I want you to help with is very simple. I need to secretly return to the New World. Secretly return to the New World, Marshal Warring States murmured softly, and then asked, what are you going to do? Although we are partners, there is no need to report everything I want to you, the Navy Marshal, right? All you need to do is send someone to send me to the designated location in the New World, and at the same time, help create a false intelligence that our red-haired pirate group is still wandering outside the New World, Shanks said very rudely. We are cooperating in some aspects. You have to make this clear, Redhead Marshal Warring States frowned and said. Shanks said softly, of course, I promise, this is what we are doing in the field of cooperation. Although both parties cooperate, they have their own calculations and plans. It made sense and, from the beginning, was not hidden. Warring States tried around and found that Shanks was unwilling to say anything, so he finally stopped asking. After all, at least until now, it's not time for them to fall out. As for Shanks' request for assistance, it is not a problem for the Navy and can be solved for him in minutes. Okay, I'll take care of this, the Warring States Marshal finally said this. Shanks grinned, but he didn't say anything more. After a few words, he hung up the phone. I've been on the road, so I can only update 2 times today. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 536. New World, Cake Island. The base camp of the Big Mom pirates, inside the Cake Island castle. At this time, Charlotte Lingling was very angry and smashed a piece of her favorite cake on the ground, with a very gloomy face. Refuse. It's all rejection. Since when did these people have the guts to reject me? Charlotte Lingling, who had an angry expression and was about to eat people if she disagreed with her, asked angrily. Under her throne were Katakuri, Perospero, Smoothie, Cracker and others. These are the current main core members of the Big Mom Pirates. But in the face of the furious mother, the angry Charlotte Lingling, they seem to be unwilling to open their mouths to touch this bad luck. Since the Warhammer Pirates transferred Amazon Lily to the New World is coming. Avalon has started its 3rd round of recruitment. Boya Hancock has been making waves in the New World during this period and has become famous all over the world. All the major forces, more or less, can feel that this new world is the strange and calm situation may not last long. The ambitious king of the night, Hosgarot Orgrim, is planning a new round of war. This cannot be concealed. Because everyone knows it, the 4 emperors are just a pattern formed by the top pirates under helplessness and compromise. Perhaps in the eyes of ordinary people, being respected as the pirate emperor and becoming one of the 4 emperors is a kind of a great honor. But many big bosses know very well that the people sitting in the position of the 4 emperors, those 4 real pirate bosses, are not thinking about how to get rid of this reputation all the time. Nothing. Doubtless, they cannot possibly want to drop, then they must want to transform the name of the 4 emperors into a name like One Piece or Pirate Overlord. Among the 4 pirate emperors, maybe Whitebeard doesn't have such ambitions. Or maybe he has already fulfilled his dream. But after all, he was pushed forward by the other 3. As one of the strongest, he deserves to be this kind of treatment. Not to mention the youngest and most powerful king of the night among the 4 emperors. Orgrim would not be willing to stop with the 4 emperors. In addition, Warhammer, the combative style of the pirate group and the unabashed ambition of the king of the night. While Amazon Lily, the country of warriors, and Boya Hancock, the pirate empress, continue to make waves in the New World, countless people are also, everyone is aware of it. The king of the night, Hosgarot Orgrim, is building momentum. Once the preparations for Avalon are completed, the New World will usher in a new battle for kingship. It should be said that by then, the 4 emperors pattern will inevitably be broken. Just what it will look like, no one can guess yet. And considering the grievances between the Warhammer pirates and the Big Mom pirates that have been entangled for many years, and considering the various situations in the New World, most people believe that this war will be the follow-up to the last Battle of Butter Island, which determined the pattern of the 4 emperors. The Warhammer pirates, entrenched in Avalon and preparing to attack, are likely to launch an attack on the Big Mom pirates again. The fellow Yonko, Charlotte Lingling, was completely beheaded. When this sign emerged, most people believed that Charlotte Lingling could not be Khazgarot Orgrim's opponent. The Big Mom pirates have a high chance of capsizing. Because judging from these years, the Big Mom pirates are not going downhill, but in terms of development, due to the comprehensive suppression by the Warhammer pirates, their living space in the New World is constantly being squeezed. In short, the Big Mom pirates, the development of the regiment was very slow. The accumulation of strength is indeed somewhat unsatisfactory. On the other hand, the Warhammer pirates feel like they are riding a rocket towards the moon. The financial resources have increased significantly. The internal situation is much more stable than it was back then. As long as Orgrim does not fall, there is almost no possibility of triggering an internal crisis. At the same time, the reputation of the First Legion of Avalon spread to the New World, and the Second Legion had already made its debut. The number of troops is constantly increasing. Now, the third round of recruitment has started and the Third Army has been formed. All in all, if the Avalon system completes the step of the plan, then, the entire Avalon system will have nearly 200,000 combatable soldiers, and they will be truly elite. This military force, placed in many places, may not be considered a big scene. But in the pirate camp, in terms of an organized army, Avalon's Warhammer pirates are absolutely terrifying as never before. No one thinks that Charlotte Lingling can stop Orgrim's Warhammer. If you look at it from a market perspective, Big Mom Pirates, which is being pointed out by Warhammer Pirates Bing Feng, is definitely a bad stock. And when the market has no confidence in this stock, naturally, this is the moment when stocks plummet and fall off a cliff. A large number of buyers turned into sellers. At this time, Charlotte Lingling felt abandoned by everyone. That bastard Orgrim has done so many things. As Orgrim's primary enemy, how could Charlotte Lingling not react? When Amazon Lily entered the New World, Totland of all nations sent Pero to Elbaf, and Charlotte Lingling intended to find more powerful allies. It doesn't matter if you, Orgrim, can win over Amazon Lily. If I can get the world's most powerful country, the Kingdom of Giants, will I still be afraid of your eggs? However, contrary to expectations, Elbaf's giant had a great dislike for Charlotte Lingling due to many things that happened in the early years, and did not have a good impression of the Big Mom Pirates. Therefore, even if Pero has given the greatest sincerity, but Elbaf still rejected Charlotte Lingling's kindness. Forget it, what makes Charlotte Lingling feel even worse is that in the past 2 years, Elbaf seems to have become increasingly close to the Warhammer Pirates. It is said that that bastard Orgrim did some kind of cook diplomacy. He has a giant cook from Elbaf under him. However, this giant cook seems to be quite famous in Elbaf. After going back and forth, the relationship between Elbaf and Avalon seems to be getting closer and closer. Of course, this is just the surface. In fact, Avalon has indeed delivered a lot of benefits to Elbaf. Moreover, this benefit is also related to Fishman Island. As we all know, there are quite a few giant fishmen and mermaids on Fishman Island. Therefore, they have something in common with the giants. The productivity of the giants is very low, and the entire country is almost in the form of a tribal alliance. It is a slightly barbaric hunting country. It is precisely because of the low productivity that the giants are almost in a barbaric state in terms of life and daily necessities. But Fishman Island is different. Their civilization is quite good. Using Avalon as a transit point, many of the various daily necessities produced by the giant fishmen and mermaids were sold to Elbaf at low prices. It has brought many substantial benefits to Elbaf's giant clan, which is the main reason why Avalon and Elbaf have become increasingly close. It is not enough to rely solely on cooks to engage in diplomacy. Closer to home, although Charlotte Lingling is angry and irritable, there is really nothing she can do against the most powerful country, Elbaf. As for when did anyone dare to reject her? Maybe after the Butter Island Tea Party? She also knew this very well. Before that, 99% of the people in the New World could not afford to offend her, Charlotte Lingling. After that, anyone who can embrace the Warhammer Pirates can have something to do with that bastard Orgrim. I won't even dump her Big Mom Pirates. Among them, the representative figure is Big News Morgans, the president of News of the World. Before Butter Island, Morgans was like a bratty younger brother, respectful to Charlotte Lingling. But after Butter Island, Morgans unceremoniously criticized and slandered the Big Mom Pirates in the newspaper. Charlotte Lingling wanted to call him to Cake Island several times to talk about these things. The bird people all pretended that she didn't exist. In the New World, people often say, What's going on between me and Mr. Chui? You should never leave Orgrim in 3 words, no matter how hard you push him, you should show off the relationship. Not to mention, although this kind of thing is very unscrupulous, it is indeed very effective. Charlotte Lingling wanted to make this birdman into a roast chicken and devour it in one bite, but unfortunately, there was nothing she could do about him. Oh, are you angry? This is true for Charlotte Lingling, let alone the other big guys. When meeting Morgans, who wouldn't want to give him some face? This time, the country of giants refused and Elbaf did not give face. Made Charlotte Lingling very irritable. The root of this irritability, in the final analysis, is the pressure from the Warhammer pirates. Now, it seems that the whole world thinks that the next step for the Warhammer pirates is to take on their Big Mom pirates. As the leader of the Big Mom pirates, can Charlotte Lingling not have any trouble? Although she always felt that Orgrim might target the Whitebeard pirates. But after all, he and Orgrim have a bitter feud, no one dares to vouch for this. So during this period of time, Charlotte Lingling has also been trying her best to improve her side's chances of winning, enhance her strength, expand her army, recruit a large number of pirates, and win allies. She has done nothing less. But even if it didn't have such great results, it wouldn't give her much confidence. Charlotte Lingling's eyes glanced around her sons and daughters. Finally, it stopped at Katakuri, who had a cold face and showed no reaction at all. This was her favorite son. Known as the highest masterpiece of the Charlotte family, the son of a perfect man. But after the Battle of Butter Island, there was an extra thorn and a rift between her and Katakuri. After that, Katakuri no longer took the initiative to advise her as before. Instead, he maintained an indifferent attitude and watched all this with cold eyes. Recalling how capable this son was. Feeling the current pressure, after all, Charlotte Lingling couldn't help but ask Katakuri, "Do you have any good ideas?" Katakuri's originally calm eyes heard the voice looked at Charlotte Lingling. "In my eyes, this mother and captain were omnipotent, powerful, and fearless. Now, Katakuri feels ridiculous. Did you become so nervous just because you received a rumor? Sure enough, once a person's courage is broken, even a lion can turn into a cat." "A little bit," Katakuri said softly. Charlotte Lingling's eyes lit up and she asked directly, "What do you think? Tell me the story." "Pirates, after all, still rely on pirates. There are 2 huge reasons why Orgrim can stand so firmly in the New World. That is because he is in alliance with Kaido and he is in alliance with the Don Quixote family," Katakuri said very calmly. After a slight pause, before Charlotte Lingling could speak, this guy continued, "If we want to fight against Orgrim and keep our power, we need allies." "Whitebeard," Charlotte Lingling thought of Whitebeard first. Katakuri shook his head and said, "No, Whitebeard is our natural ally. With his arrogance, this is probably the limit. If you open your mouth again, it will not be beautiful." "So who do you want to talk about?" Charlotte Lingling frowned and said. "Red hair," Katakuri said without hesitation, without any intention of being secretive. Charlotte Lingling's expression changed, looking a little embarrassed and a little angry. Red hair. At first, she decided to give up on this guy, and now, she was asked to conclude a covenant. What does this mean? Have a good sleep and continue to update in the afternoon. Updates will resume today. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 537. Some shame, some anger. But after all, he recalled the pressure that bastard Orgrim put on him. Charlotte Lingling still couldn't bear it. After hesitating for a while, Charlotte Lingling asked in a deep voice, "At first, we gave up supporting the red-haired pirates. Now, will that guy still cooperate with us?" Charlotte Lingling. As soon as Lingling said this, except for Katakuri, the expressions of the other sons and daughters changed a little. There was a hint of confusion and surprise in Prospero's eyes. He really didn't expect that his mother would bow her head in a place like this. For a moment, he even felt that the mother in front of him was a little strange. It can be seen that even though he is Charlotte Lingling's eldest son, his understanding of Charlotte Lingling and his understanding of Charlotte Lingling's thoughts are indeed inferior to that of Katakuri. No wonder, before Katakuri had a conflict with Charlotte Lingling, he had always been the dead old woman's most beloved and favorite son. Smoothie's eyes changed slightly, but his expression remained unchanged at all. But in her heart, she also recalled some words that Katakuri's brother said to her not long ago. Mom has changed, times have changed too. She is old and has no courage. I didn't say much, just a few simple words, but they planted a seed in Smoothie's heart. Now it seems that my mother has indeed changed, she is really much timid. Cracker didn't seem to react at all, but no one knew what he was thinking. Listening to Charlotte Lingling's inquiry, Katakuri remained expressionless and said softly, yes, the red-haired guy is also a guy who is unwilling to be lonely. He came out at the same time as Orgrim. If there were no Orgrim, the red-haired one would be the most shining one in their generation. But from the beginning to the end, he was suppressed by Orgrim, and he was arrogant with his heart. He will not be convinced, and in his heart, the person he wants to defeat the most is Orgrim. But looking at the level of the entire pirate group, the gaps between him and Orgrim are very big, so, he will definitely need a strong ally to support him against Orgrim. Charlotte Lingling couldn't help but nodded, there was nothing wrong with Katakuri's words. It is also a recognized thing on the sea. That is King Shichibukai red-haired Shanks, who has always been at odds with Kazgarot Orgrim of the Warhammer Pirates. The two sides may not have any deep hatred, but they are definitely opponents whose positions cannot be reversed. In the final analysis, it is because they are equally young, equally powerful, and equally proud. But language is an art. Katakuri obviously has a deep knowledge of this art. He told Charlotte Lingling that the person Shanks wanted to defeat the most was Orgrim. That's right. But he didn't say that before that, he might have stepped on others to get the upper hand. This can be regarded as a kind of linguistic inducement, inducing Charlotte Lingling to enter a misunderstanding. So much so that Charlotte Lingling didn't think about this blind spot. After giving Charlotte Lingling a little time to think, Katakuri continued, but from the perspective of the New World, there are not many people who can be strong allies of the red-haired guy. It can even be said that he is not a strong ally at all. There is no choice. That white-beard guy is very proud and disdains to join forces with anyone. Even us, we only maintain an implicit alliance without any substantive commitments and developments. Kaido's words are even more, Grimm's die-hard allies, red hair, cannot join forces with him. Apart from them, the only pirates in the New World who are qualified to challenge Orgrim are our Big Mom pirates. So, no matter what grudges we had, whether it was abandonment or whatever, as long as he still wants to enter the New World and compete with Orgrim for fame and status, he can't do without us. Charlotte Lingling's eyes flashed with light, as if she was thinking about Katakuri's words. After thinking about it, I felt that Katakuri was right. Orgrim is so capable. Not only is his personal strength strong, but his strategy is also very good. In other words, he has good enough advisors to help him pave the way behind the scenes, such as Ben Beckman. In short, he is now firmly established in the New World. If your allies are strong enough, you are also strong enough. If that guy Shanks wants to come in and cause trouble, he really needs to have a native from the New World to support him. After much calculation, it seems that only the Big Mom pirates are the most suitable. So looking at it this way, it seems that Charlotte Lingling needs the Red Hair pirates. The Red Hair pirates also need her Big Mom pirates. This is the basis for renewed collaboration. As long as that bastard Shanks still wants to go against Orgrim, just like Katakuri said, he can't avoid the Big Mom pirates. The current situation is very unfavorable to the Big Mom pirates. But if we really want to make a comparison, troop strength, and so on are all secondary issues. The main problem is that in terms of top-level combat effectiveness, Charlotte Lingling cannot make up for the gap with Orgrim. After all, it was a fact that she couldn't defeat Orgrim. But, if only there could be one more helper like Red Hair. Not to mention being able to kill Orgrim, being able to survive this new round of hegemony without falling is enough. Thinking of this, Charlotte Lingling's heart moved. You are right, Katakuri, we need Red Hair, and Red Hair also needs us. So, just do what you want. Now, how do you contact the Red Hair pirates? How can we hide it from Orgrim and let them enter the new world? Charlotte Lingling asked in a deep voice. Under Katakuri's scarf, the corners of her slightly ferocious mouth were slightly raised. Sure enough, just as he predicted, under this kind of pressure, her mother would make the choice he expects. Don't blame me, Mom, times have changed and you are no longer able to protect your brothers and sisters. As an older brother, I will shoulder this responsibility, Katakuri thought in his heart. Then, his face straightened and he said softly, in fact, the Red Hair is already seeking to contact us. I only realized these problems after I discovered the sign. If Mom, we can secretly invite the Red Hair, send me to Cake Island to meet in person and discuss all these things clearly. Is he in the new world? A flash of light flashed in Charlotte Lingling's eyes, and she asked in a deep voice. Katakuri responded with a very calm expression, maybe, after all, that guy's identity is somewhat special. As soon as Katakuri finished speaking, Charlotte Lingling frowned slightly, and then relaxed and said, yes, you are right, that guy is the seventh king of the king, and he is also a special king of the seven. Will he? Just like Orgrim has unexplained connections and relationships with the world government. Everyone on the sea knows that the red-haired Shanks among the king's Shishibukai has some dirty ties with the navy headquarters. With the power of the navy, let's not say too much, there is no problem in secretly arranging for the Red Hair to enter the new world. Charlotte Lingling didn't suspect anything. After thinking for a while, she said then, let's meet him. I'll leave it to you to arrange this matter, Katakuri Pero. S expression was a little complicated. When I got up, it seemed that my mother was focusing on my younger brother Katakuri again. But it was hard for him to say anything. Because he personally messed up the mission to Elbaf. Mom didn't kill herself, so it's already pretty good, okay. Subconsciously, Katakuri seemed to have easily regained the status and voice he had lost. Perhaps if there hadn't been Daifuku and the previous conflicts, Katakuri would still have served Charlotte Lingling and the Big Mom pirates wholeheartedly, right? But now, I have deeply realized the shortcomings of Charlotte Lingling and understood that she is just a paper tiger, Katakuri, but I no longer have any hesitation or illusions. As a person with a very outstanding IQ, Katakuri naturally understands that the most taboo thing for a young man is to be unsteady. As long as you make a decision, you must implement it to the end. Otherwise, he will definitely be the one who dies the worst in the end. It will even affect your younger brothers and sisters. He, Charlotte Katakuri, has decided to get on the red-haired ship. Please leave it to me, Mother, but you also need to note that the red-haired guy is not an easy guy to get along with. He is very similar to Orgrim's situation back then, especially since he is young enough and has a lot of potential in the future. Possibility, this time, if we can't come to an agreement, I think we can kill him as a threat in advance to avoid any more embarrassing surprises, Katakuri said very coldly. Charlotte Lingling glanced at Katakuri in surprise. Because this was not the first time that the son spoke for the red-haired man. Charlotte Lingling thought Katakuri Takuri admired the red hair very much. But after a moment of thought, he felt that this was normal. Maybe it was because of admiration that he paid more attention to the red hair, right? Therefore, he was able to realize that the red-haired guy was a potential opponent. You're right, if that guy can't get along with us, it would be better to kill him as soon as possible. Charlotte Lingling smiled cruelly and said, if we can work together, then after solving the problem of Orgrim, I also think that we should deal with the red hair as soon as possible, cut him off, and nip the threat in the bud. Katakuri added another sentence. Charlotte Lingling nodded with satisfaction and said, you are right, go ahead and invite the red-haired guy to meet at Cake Island. Katakuri nodded, and then said nothing more. He turned around and walked towards the door of the castle. But he was indeed sneering in his heart. Will the red-haired person know how to cooperate with you, Charlotte Lingling? Of course he will. Therefore, he will definitely get along with Charlotte Lingling. So those words just now were actually Katakuri's words to lower Charlotte Lingling's wariness. As for, after solving Orgrim's problem, we started to cut off the red hair. What a joke, Katakuri doesn't even think that having an extra red head can kill Orgrim. That red-haired guy can't kill Orgrim even if he joins forces with the navy, okay. What Katakuri values is not these things, but the uncertain possibilities and future in the red-haired person. But it's such a simple question, but Charlotte Lingling can't understand it. Why is this? Maybe it's because she is a pirate in the New World? Or maybe it's because this is the life-saving straw that a drowning person grasps for. As long as the time comes, it's time to let Cake Island change its owner, Katakuri thought in his heart. It's impossible to cut off red hair, but it's almost enough to cut off your Charlotte Lingling. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 538. In the Mihawk Kendo Gym on Avalon Island. At this time, Andrest, who was in his teens, was sitting on the stone pier in the courtyard. Perhaps he had just completed a set of training. At this time, he was shirtless and wearing a pair of black trousers, revealing his strong muscles. He has neat and sharp short hair on his head, and his eyes have the sharpness of a swordsman. Compared with many years ago, although Andre was still young, he was much less immature and more arrogant than a young man. Although he does not have the abnormal development that Orgrim once had, he still looks more mature than many of his peers after inheriting Orgrim's bloodline. Vaguely, he already looks like a boy of 15 or 16 years old. With a piece of grass in his mouth, he felt a little more unruly. In Andrest's hand was a newspaper, with the latest reward order tucked inside. The figure on the reward order belongs to Enelu. During this period of time, Enelu has almost never returned to Avalon. He has been constantly challenging himself in the New World and stirring up troubles. He is the most active leader of the Warhammer pirates. Therefore, his bounty also increased rapidly. It has already increased from 320 million Baileys to 590 million Baileys. The news in the newspapers is telling the story of Enelu. Enel battles Diamond Josie and Foil Bista of the Whitebeard pirates. With one enemy and two enemies at a disadvantage, the two sides fought for 2 days and 3 nights. In the end, Bista was seriously injured and was taken away by Josie, who was unscathed. Enelu, on the other hand, was unable to pursue him and was exhausted. But overall, it can be called a beautiful victory. This kind of battle between the cotters of the top pirate groups happens from time to time in the New World. For example, Dai Peng often fights with the Big Mom pirate group. The Sphinx fights with everyone. In short, as the situation becomes more and more unstable, there are more and more fights at this level. Perhaps when the anger accumulates to a certain level, one such battle will become a fuse and detonate the powder keg of the New World. Just as Andrest looked at the newspaper in his hand, Mihawk walked out of the house carrying his black sword knight and an ordinary saber in his hand. He glanced at Andrest, and then asked, "What are you looking at?" Listening to Mihawk's voice, Andrest quickly turned his head and said, "Master Mihawk, Brother Enel's bounty has increased again." "How many?" Mihawk asked calmly. "The latest reward offered by the Navy is 590 million Baileys." "Bravo," Andrest said slightly excitedly. Mihawk nodded first, then shook his head and said, "Not enough." "What's not enough?" Andrest asked a little strangely. "The bounty is not enough. Enel's strength is not just this amount," Mihawk said without hesitation. After a slight pause, before Andrest could speak, Mihawk continued, "The new generation of our Warhammer pirates, Eniro, Lucci, Hancock, Yamato, Runty, Peggywan, and Lily, among them, Enelu is the most anticipated by Orgrim, and we are also the most optimistic. He may grow into the top player. In the future, even I must take him seriously. There are not many new generations in the Warhammer pirates. Among them, Anaru is the oldest, and Runty and Peggyman are the latest newcomers. But in short, no matter when they joined, they are all recognized by the Warhammer pirates as the next generation. Among these people, Hancock's identity is quite special, so I won't mention it for now. Lucci and Enel are the most valued. But among Lucci and Enelu has followed Orgrim longer, received more training, and also ate the so-called invincible thunderfruit. Therefore, he has always been Lucci's boss. The eldest brother is also the most favored one among everyone. Whether it is Orgrim, Beckman, or the world's greatest swordsman like Mihawk, who has high eyesight. They all I believe that Enel will become a top master who is not inferior to the admiral in the future. Of course, this will take a little time. But now Enel is already very strong. What about me? I have inherited my father's bloodline, and I have the teachings of Master Mihawk and my grandfather. I have never been lazy in terms of swordsmanship. I should not be worse than brother Enelu, right? Andrest asked with comparison thoughts in his mind. Mihawk looked at Andrest's expectant eyes and couldn't help but smile. He felt that Andrest was a bit silly. There is no need to compare this kind of thing. Because of the different identities, Andrest is Orgrim's biological son. This is something that Enel and others cannot compare with. No matter who it is, it's only right to address Andresto as Your Highness. It can even be said that people like Lucci, Yamato, Runty, Peggywan, and Lily may have been left to Andres by Orgrim. What a special team! As for Enelu, Mihawk is actually a little unsure about Orgrim's thoughts now. Judging from the age, Enelu is not big or young. Really? It is not impossible to arrange for Andrest to be his teammate. But the problem is that Enelu is too strong. Is such an arrangement really good? Mihawk has no way of knowing the true nature of Orgrim's heart. He didn't want to ask such a question. However, Mihawk vaguely felt that Orgrim was not the kind of person who wanted to protect Andrest. He was more like a male who liked to throw cubs off the cliff. Eagle. Your qualifications are very good, but they are far from being compared to the current Enel. That guy can probably hang you up and beat you with one hand. Mihawk hit Andrest unceremoniously. Hearing this, Andrest was very unconvinced. He reached out and grabbed the air, and an inexplicable force instantly wrapped around him. On the arm is domineering. Dark arm domineering. Master Mihawk? I have also mastered the power of domineering. It can't be so bad, right? Andrest asked dissatisfiedly. Not even close, Mihawk said still very rudely. Before Andrest could speak, Mihawk continued, it's very similar. Back then, Enel was just like you. However, after he went to sea, he encountered several failures one after another. In the past few years, he has been wandering outside in order to make up for his youth. Young? Do you need to make up for being young? Andrest asked with some confusion. Of course, because he is young, he has unlimited possibilities and future, but also because he is young, there must be a gap in experience that is difficult to bridge. This is the final gap between him and the veteran masters. Once this gap is filled, AI Nero will reach the same level as us. This is the fundamental reason why he has been keen on fighting in the past few years. Mihawk smiled and said. Andrest touched his chin in confusion, and then asked, then my experience should be okay, right? After all, I often fight against you, Master Mihawk. Mihawk glanced at Andrest with disdain, and then said, with your experience, after leaving Avalon, 99% of people can hang you up and beat you. Isn't it? Am I that weak? Andrest asked unwillingly. Have Mihawk still hit Andrest's confidence mercilessly? However, his words were indeed a bit exaggerated. Although Andrest was young, he had practiced with the big guys after all. After a long time, there is no special dish. But based on his experience, it is indeed easy to overturn. After feeling a little melancholy, Andrest said excitedly, then now, should I go overseas to cultivate my own skills? Experience. Become a pirate? After you go through your own adventures and accumulate enough experience, you will become a powerful person, like my dad. That's true in theory, but don't even think about leaving Avalon. Mihawk sneered. As soon as he finished speaking, Andrest had a sad expression on his face and asked, why, master? You haven't reached the level of going to sea yet, have you mastered the swordsman's chi? Mihawk asked back. Andrest, who was still unconvinced at first, immediately wilted and said with some embarrassment, not yet. Then you are still resting here. Mihawk's eyes flashed coldly, and he raised his hand to grab the handle of the black knife behind his back. As soon as he made this move, Andrest's expression suddenly changed, and he said with some horror, I just said sit down. Master. Do not impulse. But before these words could be heard, Mihawk's black knife, knight, had already slashed down at Andrest. Andrest's movements were not slow either. He spat out the grass roots in his mouth. He exhaled towards Mihawk with a touch of vigor, and at the same time, he quickly lowered his waist sitting on the stone pier, and grabbed the hilt of the demon sword Xindu on his right waist with his left hand. Black Knife Demon, Andrest shouted loudly. The next moment, the armed domineering aura covered the demon sword's Indu, and a very sharp knife blocked the upper part in front of him. Then, the black sword Yehen in Mihawk's hand hit the heart hard. Mihawk did not use any domineering power, and his attack seemed casual, without the sharpness and speed when facing the enemy. But just like this, a blow from the world's greatest swordsman, still cannot be underestimated. The stone pier under Andrest's butt exploded in an instant, and several cracks spread out from the stone pier. Afterwards, Andrest's body was unable to support this kind of with the outpouring of power, his knees softened and he knelt on one knee on the ground. With this movement, the ground under his knees was also crushed by the powerful force. The speed is okay, but the power is not enough. Mihawk commented very calmly. Master, I was in a sitting position just now, so it was difficult for me to exert my strength. Okay, Andrest retorted through gritted teeth while resisting the inexhaustible force coming from Mihawk's blade. Your opponent won't mind whether you are sitting or standing. As a swordsman, you must maintain your peak posture at all times. Mihawk taught him a lesson. But at the moment when he spoke, Andrest's eyes flashed and he shouted, wind. The sword moved with the heart, and I saw the demon sword heart crossing suddenly burst out with a strong wind, protecting Andrest's body instantly. At the same time, Andrest's hand relaxed, and the black sword, yes, blade struck directly on the invisible wind on his body. It had no particularly effective effect, it just made Mihawk's blade pause for a moment. But for Andrest, who had been planning for a long time, that's enough. The master's must-have move lazy donkey roll was used instantly, and with an embarrassing brush, he escaped from Mihawk's black knife, knight. At the same time, Andrest held the ground with one hand, and again with one exertion of strength, the figure jumped up from the ground, and made a graceful 360-degree spin. Then, the cold light in his hand pierced the night sky. One sword-style steel-cutting flash, Andrest roared, and the heart in his hand followed his movements, and slashed Mihawk's shoulder with a very smooth knife. Do you think you are awesome? Mihawk sneered. As soon as he finished speaking, Mihawk took a step forward seemingly casually. and it was this step that made Andrest extremely uncomfortable, because his slash, if he falls according to this trajectory, he will no longer be able to kill my hawk. But if he changes his moves, it will be very embarrassing when he is in the air. A flash, my hawk moved again at this time, and his speed became faster, so fast that Andrest couldn't react at all. He only felt a pain in his waist, and then he was hit by the back of the black knife. Yeah, like a rubber ball, it flew out with a slash of the knife and hit the already broken stone pier, shattering the stone pier. It's all fancy, I've told you a long time ago, the simpler the movements, the fewer flaws there will be, but you are like this, and you still want to go to sea? 10 years too early. My hawk put away the black sword. Ye, looked at Andrest twisting on the ground, and mocked unceremoniously. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 539. In Orgrim's house, most of the cotters of the Warhammer pirates who had nothing to do at this time were eating together here. Sitting on the front seat, Orgrim took a sip from the teacup and glanced at his unlucky son Andrest with some humor. My hawk's sword was struck with the back of the sword. But it was still a slash from the number 1 swordsman. Although Andrest has a very special physique, he is still in the growth stage after all and has not reached the level of perversion like Orgrim. So although there were no obvious injuries, sitting there, I just felt sore, swollen, and uncomfortable. However, since my hawk was sitting opposite Andrest didn't dare to twist around. He could only sit there in a straight and upright manner, eating the food in front of him. Ha ha ha, Andre, I heard that you told my hawk that you wanted to go to sea today, but you were taught a lesson. The Sphinx looked like he was gloating about his misfortune and asked Andrest. Andret glanced at the Sphinx, who was half a head shorter than him with some toothache. In the end, he felt that he was beaten. But this bastard witch could only nod her head without speaking. Idiot, if you want to go to sea, just tell me. If I'm in a good mood, I might take you to sea. Also, you are the son of a pirate, so you need to understand what freedom is. My hawk won't let you go to sea, so you can also find an opportunity to secretly. The Sphinx is good at not teaching, so she just confuses Andrest. But before she could finish her words, she suddenly felt a murderous aura coming towards her. When she turned around, she saw my hawk looking at her with stern eyes. What are you doing? Sphinx raised her chin without fear at all and asked aggressively. My hawk said calmly, Sphinx, there is only Andre in my kendo gym. I know, you are stupid, you insist on having the kendo gym in the station, Sphinx said with disdain. My hawk was stunned for a moment. Okay? Why does it feel like something is wrong? Didn't Orgrim say that the aroma of wine is not afraid of the depth of the alley? But at this time, he didn't care about this matter, but continued, so, once Andre runs away, there will be no one here to learn swordsmanship from me. That seems to be right, Sphinx said still very stinkingly. Then, I will be very unhappy, so once Andre sneaks out to sea, Sphinx, be prepared to be captured by me and learn the way of the sword. My hawk sneered. After saying that, he ignored the stunned Sphinx and lowered his head to eat the food. The Sphinx was stunned for a while and looked up and down at my hawk. Figure. Finally, he came to the conclusion that if he really took action, he might not be able to beat my hawk. After thinking about it, Sphinx reached out and patted Andre, who was sitting next to him. Andrest's shoulder. These two slaps made Andrest feel uncomfortable all over, because they happened to hit the place where he was beaten. Andre, forget what I just said. You are still young and you have to be obedient. The sea is there and you can't escape. When you grow up, you can go to sea again, Sphinx said seriously. Andrest looked at the Sphinx with a confused expression, not knowing what to say. I didn't say I was going to go to sea secretly. Don't drag me into the water, Okay. The others looked at the Sphinx in surprise. What's going on? The Sphinx actually gave in? She obviously dares to fight against Mr. Chui. The Sphinx seemed to have noticed the surprised looks of the friends around him, and shouted angrily, "What are you looking at? Have you never seen a beautiful woman? Believe it or not, I have a shot." Before she finished speaking, the other people's eyes turned normal. Right, this is the Sphinx. But the change in everyone's gaze made the Sphinx unbearable. What do you mean? Just when the Sphinx was about to go berserk, Queen Stussy placed a peeled egg in the Sphinx's bowl and said with a smile, "Stop it, Sphinx. Eat the eggs quickly, I just peeled them." The angry expression on the Sphinx's face dissipated in an instant. He looked like a pampered kitten and happily picked up the egg and said, "Yeah, Stussy, you understand me very well. I just like to eat eggs, especially those without shells." "Just like it." Stussy smiled very fondly and said. "Master of animal taming," Beckman said softly to Plank. Gangplank also nodded and whispered. Master Hammer relied on force to suppress the Sphinx, while the Queen manipulated the sky in the palm of her hand. "Can't afford to offend, can't afford to offend." Beckman smiled again. Orgrim looked at the scene with a smile and put the empty teacup in his hand on the table. Then, Monet, who was sitting on the other side of him, took the teapot with a wink. She got up and poured a cup of hot tea for Orgrim. Queen Stussy turned her head and glanced, with a smile on her lips, but she didn't say anything. She didn't even mean to be jealous. With Hankook is different. Hancock is a powerful pirate empress with a background. She is backed by 1,000,000 Amazon Lily army. She is a very important member of the Warhammer pirates who intend to launch a new round of war. As far as Monet is concerned, she is nothing more than an exchange student from the Don Quixote family. A mere secretary cannot threaten her as the queen. Even if something really happened between Orgrim and Monet at most, she is the second Britannia. She may have a slightly higher status, but only a little bit. Even Queen Stussy sometimes thinks that this is okay. Orgrim is in her. It's better to steal something under your nose than to eat it randomly after he goes out. Monet, of course, noticed Queen Stussy's casual glance. But she also made her position very clear. He knew very well that he could not compete with Queen Stussy for anything, and it was not even certain whether Lord Orgrim would have any thoughts about him. Just quietly be a well-behaved female secretary and that's it. Don't make too much trouble. However, she also has her own capital, that is, she is a natural ability user. Although Swexu's fruit is not very outstanding, it is still valuable to cultivate. If she can become a female secretary who is capable of both literary and martial arts, Mr. Chui will be able to take her out. By then, the status can be improved, right? It's a pity that the young master doesn't side with her, otherwise he would also be a person with background. That's right, although Monet is from the Don Quixote family, Doflamingo has no intention of messing with this Orgrim harem. He is a very sensible person. What's more, Monet doesn't have the value to let him get involved. If we really want to count, Doflamingo even supports the queen. Thinking of this, Monet glanced helplessly at the young master sitting not far away. At this time, the young master is no longer in a wheelchair. Although there are still some bandages wrapped around his body, in fact, there is nothing wrong with him. Neiman, a reborn beauty, sat next to him, putting some food in a small bowl in front of Doflamingo. Occasionally, she would fill a bowl of soup and feed it to Doflamingo with her own hands. Orgrim was very suspicious. The bastard Doflamingo still refused to recover, and he was most likely doing misfortune to Neiman, right? He picked up the teacup that Monet filled with tea again and took a sip. Then Orgrim cleared his throat and said, "Since I went to sea in the North Sea, the first friend I met was Dover. Then at that time, Dover was the little overlord of the North Sea, and I was just an unknown person who had just gone to sea. But even so, Dover still gave me a lot of help. Beckman and I also learned about it from him. Neiman's news. After this, Dover spared no effort to provide us with battleships or munitions. It was at that time that the friendship between our Warhammer pirates and the Don Quixote family began to take root. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 or 20 years have passed. As Orgrim said this, Beckman, Hank, Plank and others also had expressions of nostalgia and sadness on their faces. Yes, 10 or 20 years have passed in a blink of an eye. At first, a group of unruly people in the small town of Ogulin in the North Sea have now become big shots in the New World, stomping their feet and making the sea tremble. Doflamingo's expression was also somewhat emotional. He had never thought that Orgrim and him would reach this point. In fact, at the beginning, he just wanted to have a good relationship with Orgrim, and even wanted to use Orgrim to attack the Germa family. But Orgrim's pace was so fast that he didn't even have time to make arrangements. The Warhammer pirates set sail and left the North Sea. After that, it was like a dragon entering the sea, out of control. When they meet again, Orgrim has become a big figure that Doflamingo needs to look up to. However, as Orgrim said, friendship took root and sprouted at that time. Fortunately, Kaido is not here now and has gone home, otherwise he would probably cry with envy. It can be said that without Dover's help, Orgrim and I would not have gone so smoothly. Without Dover's help, Beckman and I would not have been able to find Neiman so quickly, Orgrim said softly. The others also nodded, especially Neiman. Looking at Doflamingo now, her eyes were filled with tenderness. Yes, without him, the two brothers don't know when it will take them to find themselves. Later, the wave of the Great Pirate Age came, and the Don Quixote family and our Warhammer pirates also formed an alliance, and this alliance was not pure. Orgrim slapped the table and said. Before everyone could be surprised, Orgrim laughed and said gee ha 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 ha, because, in my opinion, Dover is like my younger brother, and he is like my younger brother. Like all the comrades of the Warhammer pirates, we are all our own people. The relationship between us cannot be summed up by the simple word alliance. Glank and others all nodded, because there was nothing wrong with what Orgrim said. It seemed that from the beginning, no one regarded Doflamingo and the Don Quixote family as ordinary people. From the beginning to the end, Doflamingo and the Don Quixote family seemed to be their own members of the Warhammer pirates. In the true sense. Doflamingo looked at Orgrim's high-spirited look was also a bit emotional. When I decided to change careers from the North Sea, I actually wanted to catch a pirate ship and become the Pirate King. Why did it become like this inexplicably? But soon, a smile appeared on Doflamingo's lips. That's fine too. No, I should say, that's it. Today is different from the past. A new round of war will be started by us soon. Before that, we, the Warhammer pirates, should unite all the forces that can be united. Although before, Dover is not an outsider, but now, I want him to become one of our own. Orgrim put down the teacup in his hand, and then picked up the wine glass on the table. Then, Orgrim looked at Doflamingo and said, Don Quixote Doflamingo, in the name of Hosgaros Orgrim, I give my most beloved sister, Caranda Neiman, betrothed to you. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 540. There is a very large ancient creature in the New World. It is so huge that even the super-large Neptune type cannot match it. This creature can be called the largest creature in the world, and it has lived for thousands of years. That's right, this creature is the walking island zoo, also known as the Elephant Lord. To put it simply, it is a giant elephant with 4 legs that are unimaginably long and can walk around in the sea with the water up to its knees. As for strength, well, with such a big body, the strength is unimaginable. Kaido's Drought Jack is a ruthless character who dares to pull up to the warship carrying Sengoku, Fujitora, and Itsuo's general staff to rob people. On the elephant owner's side, he is just a stinky younger brother who can be wiped out with just one nose. Precisely because the elephant master is alive, Zo, as an island, is always moving and has no magnetic field like a conventional island. Therefore, even if everyone knows that this mysterious island is in the New World, there are still only a handful of people who have actually landed on this island. At least Orgrim hasn't been here. He had wanted to find this island, but the problem was, bad luck, never really found it. Later, I gradually forgot about this matter. So, I didn't pay attention to it. According to legend, on the back of the elephant owner, there is a country built by a mysterious race. It's called the Furry Principality. This race on the sea is called the Fur Tribe. There are rumors that the Fur Tribe is very hostile to humans. But in fact, these are all lies. The Fur Tribe is a relatively benign race. Although their fighting power is very powerful, they are not hostile to humans. On the contrary, in their perception, humans and they are of the same race, and can even be said to be the same race. Because they believe that humans are one of the complex branches of the Fur Tribe, hairless monkeys. It's just that the number is a little bit more than 100 million. At this time, under the mysterious island of the New World, a pirate ship with a leopard head hanging on its horn and a leopard-spotted hull was parked next to one of the elephant master's legs. The flag flown by this pirate ship is so prestigious in the New World that almost no one dares to offend it. That's right, the flag of the Warhammer pirates. There is no doubt that judging from the style of the boat, it is the boat of Rob Lucci, the Little Leopard. The ship's name is ordinary, far less flashy and unconventional than the Sphinx. It's called Lightning Leopard. But it also fits Lucci's feeling very well. At this time, Lucci was standing on the deck, looking at the long legs that towered into the sky with emotion on his face. Zo Island, the elephant owner who is said to have lived for thousands of years and is older than the origin of mankind, it actually exists. Lucci smacked his lips and said, "This is the New World, where anything impossible will become possible." Robin wore a pair of flat glasses on the bridge of his straight nose, holding a book in his hand, observing the huge elephant owner, and responded softly. Lucci nodded, pretending to understand, and then he looked back and shouted, "Brother Enelu, what are you doing? How do we get up there?" "Climb." "That's right, Enel." He was also with Lucci at this time. Speaking of which, not long ago, the reason why he fought with the cotters of the Whitebeard pirates was not entirely because he wanted to accumulate enough money as much as possible. Combat experience has filled the gap with the older generation of masters. Part of the reason is because intelligence pointed out that Huajian Baista has the latest location information of Uzo. Now it seems that Aini the road is successful. "I'm coming," Anilu responded, then hung up the phone in his hand, walked towards Lucci and the others, and said, "Just now there was news from Avalon, saying that Boss Orgrim has taken Lord Neiman, betrothed to Doflamingo. This is obviously very big and explosive news." But Lucci and Robin both had indifferent expressions on their faces, and they didn't feel shocked at all. "Yeah? Doflamingo is really lucky to be able to marry Lord Neiman and become Lord Hammer's younger brother." Lucci curled his lips and said. Robin stretched out his hand to adjust the flat glasses on the bridge of his nose and said with a smile, "Orgrim had this idea a long time ago. I'm not surprised at all." "Yes, everyone can see it," Anilu nodded and said, as if he was not very surprised. After dismissing the topic, Anilu also raised his head and looked at Gao Shifanji's elephant legs, then twitched the corner of his mouth and couldn't help but ask Ludo Ben, "Are you really sure? Is there a piece of the legendary road sign's historical text on the elephant owner's back?" The historical text of the road sign, according to legend, recorded the historical text of the coordinates of Ravdru. The Warhammer pirates now owned a piece of it, and Robin had read it more than once. This historical text of the road sign was the original text of the road sign during the Battle of Butter Island. Ronk and Katerina Dupont went to Cake Island to steal it. It was previously in the hands of Charlotte Lingling. Theoretically speaking, it is necessary to obtain the historical text of 4 road signs in order to truly analyze the specific location of Rafdrua come on. But in fact, according to the way the road signs are recorded in the historical text, you can probably find it if you get 3 blocks and walk along it. If there are 2 blocks, it depends on your luck. As long as it is not on the right side among the 4 blocks, you can probably find it. If you can reveal the straight line where Rafdrua is located, you can still find it by walking along the way. However, no one knows if there are any other secrets here, so the most reliable thing is to find them all. 4 pieces, get the exact coordinates of Rafdrua. Orgrim already has 1 piece in his hand at this time, but it is not exclusive. Charlotte Lingling can't be so stupid that she doesn't have a rubbing. After all, she has been stolen by Roger. It's happened once. It's not clear whether this rubbing has ever been circulated. Therefore, Orgrim also wants to get an exclusive historical text of the road sign. Although he has no interest in Rafdrua, the road sign, the historical text, is always special. You may not care about it, but you can't live without it. Especially a big pirate like Orgrim. Otherwise, if you wake up one day, some lucky person will suddenly find the rubbings. Or originally, Rafdrua was found by force? What about that? A pirate king suddenly appeared above his head. Isn't this a joke? The 4 emperors don't have any respect for themselves, right? But later, due to many things, Orgrim finally delayed this matter. There is no such urgency to search for it. Enel, Lucci, and Robin were not allowed to go to sea in the early years, so they all lived in the courtyard of Orgrim. Therefore, he knows many things about Orgrim very well. This time, they just want to help Orgrim find the road sign and historical text. Robin spent a lot of effort, using the power of the Warhammer pirates, to search for a large number of documents and information. Finally, he came to a possibility, that is, there is a red mark on the back of the Elephant Master. Road sign history text. Listening to Annaloo's inquiry, Robin shook his head calmly and said, "No one can really make a conclusion without seeing it with one's own eyes, but according to my investigation and research, it is possible that the elephant owner has a historical text on the road sign on his back. The biggest." As soon as she finished speaking, Lucci said in a loud voice, "We are here, so we have to go up, right? Although this guy Robin is very weak, the ability to read is between the 2 of us. No one can catch up, not even in our Warhammer pirates. We can't find anyone more powerful than her." She said it is most likely that there are road signs and historical text on it, and I think there is a high probability of it. Annaloo, he couldn't help but nodded. Yes, when it comes to strength, Robin is really not that good. It can only be said that it is not bad. After all, I have followed them and hung out with Orgrim for so many years, so I still have some skills. But when it comes to reading and knowledge, Robin can hang up these 2 idiots with one hand and beat them. You're right. You've come here anyway, so you can't just leave like this. If you find the historical text of the road sign and go back this time, you can give a big gift to Boss Orgrim. Anilu said with a smile. After a slight pause, he looked at the surrounding situation again and said, "It would be great if Boss Shiji was here. We went up together with the people and the boat. Now if so, I don't know what's going on up there. The ship is definitely not accessible. In this way, all our subordinates will stay on the ship and follow the Elephant Master, lest we lose the ship when we come down. The 3 of us, everyone depends on their ability." Lu Chi didn't have any other opinions. He nodded and said, "That's easy to say. Although it's a bit high, it's not that I can't climb it." Having said this, Lu Chi looked at Enel and Robin. As for Enel, it must be no problem. His thunder fruit can fly directly. This kind of thing is not difficult at all. But Robin. Hey, Robin, would you like me to give you a ride? Lu Chi asked a little bit. Robin glanced at Lucci and had no intention of paying attention to him. His eyes looked at the elephant master's long legs. In the next moment, the Hua fruit ability was activated, and an arm composed of the stairs grew directly from the elephant owner's legs. Then, Robin walked to the top of the elephant owner's legs very gracefully, followed the stairs, and started climbing towards the elephant owner's back. "Ha ha ha, call you a stinker," Anilu teased Lucci with a smile, and then said, "I'll go up and explore the way for you first." The moment the words fell, a thunder exploded out of thin air, and Anilu's figure, like lightning, pierced the sky and disappeared. Lucci smacked his lips in envy, and then his figure twisted, and his figure quickly expanded, turning directly into the form of a leopard man. Leopard is good at climbing, and Lucci is a master of the 6 movements. He is very good at everything from shave step to moon step. He can climb like an elephant master with ease. I arranged my subordinates and told them to follow the elephant master and not run around. Then Lucci turned around and pounced on the elephant master's long legs. He climbed quickly on them as if they were walking on flat ground. After a while, he caught up with Robin, who had taken the first step. Before Lucci could make any more fuss, Robin was also very fast. With one step of his foot, he actually used the moon step among the 6 moves. Jumping out of thin air, he jumped directly onto Lucci's back. Then, the Hua fruit ability was activated again, firmly fixing himself on Lucci's back. "Hello. Didn't you say you didn't want it just now?" Lucci complained very unhappily. Robin opened a page of the book and said calmly, "Did I say a word?" "You?" Lucci was stunned for a moment, as if there really wasn't one. "The elephant's owner doesn't mind if there's someone on its back, so what do you mind?" "Let's go, little leopard," Robin smiled and said. Lucci roared in anger, but after all, it is impossible to really throw away Robin, his companion, otherwise Lord Hammer will not kill him. Turning grief and anger into strength, little leopard Lucci all the way with lightning speed, he quickly crawled towards the elephant owner's back along his long legs.